Welcome to Iggy's Insights, where we dive deep into economic topics that matter. I'm your host, Iggy, and today we're exploring a perspective that might challenge your thinking about Singapore's economic miracle. Back in 1965, when Singapore was unceremoniously expelled from Malaysia, few would have predicted that this tiny island with no natural resources would transform into one of the world's most prosperous nations. Yet here we are, witnessing what many call an economic miracle. But was it really a miracle, or was it the result of deliberate economic strategies, historical circumstances, and careful planning? Let's unpack this fascinating economic journey together. Before we dive into Singapore's current economic powerhouse status, we need to understand where they started. Singapore's economic history doesn't begin with independence in 1965. It stretches back to 1819, when the British East India Company established a trading post there. Under British colonial rule, Singapore developed as an entrepot, a port where goods were imported and exported without significant processing. This foundation as a trading hub left an indelible mark on Singapore's economic DNA. When Singapore achieved self-governance in 1959, the newly elected People's Action Party, PAP, led by Lee Kuan Yew, inherited a nation facing enormous challenges. Nearly 70% of the population lived in slums. Unemployment was in double digits, and the economy was overly dependent on entrepot trade. This trading economy, while profitable during colonial times, left Singapore vulnerable to global market fluctuations and provided few jobs for a growing population. The initial economic strategies from 1959 to 1965 focused on rapid industrialization and merger with Malaysia. The merger was seen as providing a larger domestic market for Singapore's industries. However, when this political union collapsed in 1965, Singapore's leaders had to radically rethink their economic approach. This expulsion, while traumatic, forced a pivot that would ultimately prove transformative. What followed was one of history's most remarkable economic transformations. The PAP's economic strategy post-1965 centered around four key pillars: attracting foreign direct investment, state capitalism, export-oriented industrialization, and free trade. This wasn't a random collection of policies, but a carefully designed strategy that acknowledged Singapore's realities: a small domestic market, lack of natural resources, but strategic location, and inherited port infrastructure. Let's look at how these strategies played out. Singapore aggressively courted foreign companies by offering tax breaks, no minimum wage, stable labor relations, and excellent infrastructure. This wasn't just about opening the door to foreign capital. It was about creating jobs rapidly for a population struggling with unemployment. Picture this. You're a British company in the 1970s facing constant labor strikes at home, and suddenly, this small Asian nation offers you a business environment with tax incentives, industrial peace, and a prime location for accessing Asian markets. It was an irresistible proposition. Meanwhile, the government wasn't sitting back and letting foreign companies do all the work. Singapore embraced state capitalism, where the government itself acted as an entrepreneur in several sectors. They established state monopolies in utilities, telecommunications, port services, and media. But unlike many other countries where state-owned enterprises became inefficient money pits, Singapore demanded these entities operate profitably. Take the Public Utilities Board. It managed water, electricity, and gas supply, but customers paid market rates for every drop of water and kilowatt of electricity. There were no subsidies, no endless bailouts. This business-like approach to government entities created efficient infrastructure that further attracted foreign investment. What's particularly fascinating is how Singapore mobilized capital for these initiatives. They tapped into citizen savings through the Post Office Savings Bank and the Central Provident Fund, CPF, a mandatory savings scheme. In many developing nations, such access to public funds might have led to corruption, but Singapore's leadership maintained remarkable discipline, with strong anti-corruption measures and competitive salaries for civil servants to reduce temptation. The results were dramatic. Between 1965 and 1984, Singapore's GDP per capita grew from USD 500 to USD 7,200, a 14-fold increase in just 2 decades. By any measure, this was extraordinary growth. But historical forces don't remain static, and Singapore's economy was about to face its first major post-independence test. In 1984, Singapore experienced its first recession since independence, ending an unbroken streak of double-digit growth. This economic shock coincided with a political one. In the 1984 election, the vote against the PAP increased significantly. These twin shocks prompted a serious rethinking of economic strategy. An economic committee identified three main challenges. First, Singapore's economy was too dependent on foreign investment, with few linkages to local businesses. Second, they needed to diversify beyond manufacturing. And third, the economy needed to become more competitive through privatization and liberalization. This led to the next phase of Singapore's economic evolution from 1984 to 2000. The government promoted the service industry, encouraged ties between foreign and local companies, and began privatizing state-owned enterprises. This wasn't a rejection of previous strategies, but an evolution responding to new economic realities. The telecommunications monopoly, for example, was incorporated as Singtel in 1992 and became a public company in 1993, with a competitor, M1, entering the market in 1994. During the 1990s, global economic growth, integration of international financial markets, and China's opening up all benefited Singapore. By 1996, before the Asian economic crisis, Singapore's per capita GDP reached USD 26,200. Even after the crisis and the dot-com crash, it remained at USD 21,700 in 2001. The historical foundations laid in previous decades had created resilience. Fast forward to more recent times. Looking at Singapore's economy today, we can see the continuing influence of these historical strategies, now adapted for a digital age. The current economic landscape shows remarkable strength. In Q3 2024, Singapore's economy registered an impressive 5.4% year-on-year growth, one of the strongest quarterly performances in recent years. The Ministry of Trade and Industry projects GDP growth of 3.5% for 2024, followed by a more moderate 3.0% in 25. What's driving this growth? The manufacturing sector, particularly electronics, has been expanding rapidly, by 15.4%, according to recent data, fueled by growing global demand for semiconductors and components supporting AI technologies. Biomedical manufacturing has also seen significant investments. The finance sector continues to grow steadily, bolstered by cross-border transactions, wealth management services, and Singapore's emerging role in green finance. We can trace a direct line from Singapore's historical emphasis on state planning to today's Smart Nation initiative, which focuses on three pillars: digital government, digital economy, and digital society. This initiative identifies 5 key domains where technology can transform the urban environment: health, education, transport, urban solutions, and finance. If you study these domains carefully, you'll notice they build directly on Singapore's historical strengths: its port infrastructure, its role as a financial hub, and its emphasis on human capital development. The current administration's Research, Innovation, and Enterprise, RIE, 2025 plan allocates about 1% of the nation's GDP annually to support research and innovation activities, totaling $28 billion. This includes a $120 million AI for Science initiative launched in October 2024, which aims to help researchers utilize AI for breakthroughs in advanced materials and biomedical sciences. Again, we see the historical pattern of state-led investment in strategic sectors, now adapted for the AI age. This brings us to an important question. What can investors learn from Singapore's economic history and current trajectory? First, Singapore's experience demonstrates the power of strategic economic positioning. Singapore didn't try to compete with larger nations across all industries. Instead, it leveraged its geographical advantage as a port city and focused on becoming a crucial node in global trade and finance. For investors, this suggests the value of identifying countries or companies that have found their unique niche in the global economy. Second, Singapore shows how consistent policy direction, even as it evolves over time, creates investor confidence. For investors, this suggests since independence, despite changing global conditions, Singapore has maintained core principles: openness to trade and investment, strong rule of law, anti-corruption measures, and investment in infrastructure and human capital. This consistency has made it a safe haven for capital in a region often marked by political instability. As investors, we should value policy predictability and institutional strength. Third, Singapore's development illustrates the importance of adaptability. When faced with the 1984 recession or the Asian financial crisis, Singapore didn't cling to old models, but evolved its strategy while maintaining core principles. Investors should similarly be alert to changing market conditions while staying true to fundamental investment principles. Looking ahead, what challenges and opportunities might Singapore face? Despite its strengths, Singapore is not immune to global economic uncertainties, geopolitical tensions, particularly between the US and China, and the disruptions of technological change. Its small size and openness make it vulnerable to external shocks. However, Singapore is deliberately positioning itself for the future. Its push into applied AI across sectors like education, finance, manufacturing, logistics, and transport represents a bet on technology as the next driver of growth. New R&D initiatives termed RIE flagships will prioritize value creation in essential economic sectors, while RIE grand challenges will tackle strategic issues like healthy aging. The inaugural RIE flagship project will concentrate on enhancing Singapore's semiconductor and microelectronics research, a strategic choice given global supply chain concerns in this crucial sector. Singapore is also focusing on talent development, both domestic and international. The Economic Development Board is introducing a global founder program to attract experienced venture founders to establish businesses in Singapore. This recognizes that in the knowledge economy, human capital is the most valuable resource. So, what's the investment takeaway from our exploration of Singapore's economic history and current trajectory? First, Singapore itself remains an attractive investment destination, particularly for those looking for exposure to Southeast Asia with the security of strong institutions. Its banking, real estate, and technology sectors offer various entry points. More broadly, the Singapore model suggests we should look for economies with clear strategic direction, strong institutions, and adaptability in the face of change. Vietnam, for instance, has been studying Singapore's development model and implementing elements of it. Estonia has built a digital government infrastructure inspired partly by Singapore's example. For individual companies, Singapore's state-linked corporations like Singtel, DBS Bank, or Singapore Airlines demonstrate how entities can succeed with the right balance of government support and market discipline. These companies have expanded regionally and globally while maintaining strong corporate governance. As we conclude our deep dive into Singapore's economic journey, remember that what appears as an economic miracle from the outside was actually the result of deliberate strategies, historical circumstances, and adaptive responses to changing conditions. Singapore transformed itself from a colonial entrepot to a manufacturing hub to a service and knowledge economy, each time building on previous foundations while evolving to meet new challenges. What other economic miracles might we reinterpret through this historical lens? And what emerging economies today might be laying the groundwork for their own remarkable transformations? These are questions worth pondering as we navigate our investment decisions in an ever-changing global economy. This has been Iggy from the Investing Iguana, bringing you historical context for today's economic realities. Until next time, keep those eyes open for the long-term patterns that truly shape our economic world.